So, what exactly is the state of women's basketball right now? Where is it at? What can we expect with it? This is exactly why I'm excited to bring on our guest. His name is Coach Carson Huelle, and he's had a lot of experience coaching women's basketball at the collegiate level, coming soon at the high school level. He's the son of a coach. He played basketball himself at the collegiate level, so he's been around the game, both in the men's and now in the women's side, and he has a lot of insights here. We're going to be touching base on a lot of different topics. I mean, we're talking about what it takes to be a good athlete for an aspiring female athlete. Like what does it take? We're talking about coaching. We're talking about the WNBA. We're talking about Caitlin Clark. We're talking about Angel Reese. We're talking about all of this. We're talking about how is women's basketball trying to keep the women stateside with the Unrivaled 3-on-3 league that they got there as compared to making them go overseas. So we'll touch base a lot on that. And he is so well spoken, right? So I hope you guys tune into this one and enjoy this interview, because Coach Carson Huelle has a way of articulating his thoughts in such an insightful way. And I know you guys are going to love it just like I did. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for all the support all the time. Hit that subscribe button and get ready, because this is the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it?
Game time! Woo!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. Shane Larson here, host of the show. I am really stoked to have our guest here on the show today. As you guys heard in the introduction, we're going to be touching base on the state of women's basketball, and I think it's an important topic. It's a hot topic right now, but it's important to kind of dive into it and hear it from someone who kind of understands it and is in the thick of things in that world, right? Like, we hear a lot of opinions in the sports world. If you follow sports content, you get a lot of opinions, but what I wanted to do is bring someone in that, is kind of involved in that world and has been involved in that world and get their insights. So I just want to give a shout out to all the listeners who have joined the show, listened to the show in the last 8.5 years. This show has been downloaded in 183 countries and all 50 states, and it's thanks in large part to everybody who's joined the show or listened to the show or shared the show with somebody. So thanks to everybody. It takes a village, and I know that, and I'm super grateful for that. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. I'm bringing on Coach Carson Huelle to the podcast. Carson, thanks for joining the show, man.
Shane, thanks so much for having me. We were talking a little bit before the show started, and honestly, just a huge fan from afar. You do a great job bringing on guests, but then having the opportunity just to talk today about important topics within women's basketball and basketball in general is really exciting for me. So really appreciate you having me on today.
Heck yeah, man. Well, thank you for joining me and being willing to share your insights with all the experience that you have. So, Carson, if you wouldn't mind, give a quick little background of yourself, I guess, like kind of where you are currently and what's your background in your history and coaching, training, and et cetera.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of born within basketball. My dad was a college coach. So he coached for about 13 years on the men's side. And his last stop was at the University of Northern Colorado, which is where my brother and I were born. And then he actually got out of coaching. So it taught me at a young age that basketball is really important, but it's not everything, because he wanted to spend more time with us and his family. So I always kind of had the coaching gene a little bit. Just when you're a coach's kid, you learn things a little bit faster. You learn the game faster, whether you're watching it or you're playing basketball in the park. There's just certain things that other kids don't get. So been taught the game of basketball for a really long time, and then was fortunate enough throughout high school. I played at Fort Collins High School in Fort Collins, Colorado. And by the time my senior year rolled around, I had a couple of opportunities to play at the next level. So I played my first 2 years at Doane University, which is a NAIA in Crete, Nebraska, and then ended up transferring to a school, Division III school, Augsburg University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then that kind of gave me my start really into coaching, because my senior year, I decided not to play and to be a student assistant. And then I also started to get involved on the women's side of things because the Minnesota Lynx were out there. And so I just started going to games, and then I started getting content on the games. So I started to create my own kind of sub-profile fan page called WNBA Fans Only, and grew that for about 3.5 years. So simultaneously, as I was growing that, also coaching women's basketball, Division III at Lawrence University for 2 years. And then this past year, I was at William Jewell College in Liberty, Missouri, a Division II school on the women's side, which during that time actually ended up selling my page because it just got a little too big for me and one person, and I knew it'd be better in hands of someone else, but still an avid follower of the game, and it kind of consumes my life. Right now, I'm actually back home at my alma mater, and I about 2-3 weeks ago got named the head coach of the girls basketball team at Fort Collins High School. So back home, still coaching hoops, really passionate about the game, and I think just growing the game specifically on the women's side too, because it is growing a lot, especially college and professional, but the youth still needs to get up to where it needs to be. So there's my long Wikipedia intro of my career, but it's been a fun one so far, and looking to grow each and every day. I don't know everything, but I think your experiences shape you, so it's been fun so far.
No, that's awesome, man. That's a really cool background there. Just a quick, brief history of where you've been. That actually leads me to a couple more questions for you. Then, so you're back home. It's kind of full circle, back home to where you were at and all that, but in the middle of that, okay, so for someone like yourself who's played at the next level, obviously you understand as an athlete what it takes, right? And you've seen it at a high level from the men's side. When you started coaching women's basketball, Carson, I'm curious, like once you started getting around women's basketball and you were creating content for women's basketball, I guess this is it's hard for me to like phrase it right, I guess, because if there's always been this perception, I felt like just growing up of like, oh man, it's boring. It's not as entertaining. That's the reason the numbers are down. And so you have this like idea or perception of what it's going to be, but I'm curious what your perspective is, having covered it from a media, like a fan perspective, as well as a coach. Like, what was it like? What's the differences between women's basketball and men's? And do you find it entertaining?
Yeah, it's such a good question because a lot of people don't want to ask that question because we want to compare them the exact same, and they're different games. They just are. Like, obviously we have a 10-foot goal on both sides of it. But as far as college basketball goes, if you just look at the design of the game, the men play in halves and the women play in quarters. And so that's already just that's a big difference in my eyes from a coach's opinion already, because the flow of the game, stoppage, timeouts, the way that you think about the game, I love quarters. Which if this message carries any weight, like men's basketball has to change to quarters. It's the only format that doesn't have quarters when you look at high level basketball all the way to high school. It doesn't make sense that they have halves. So something as quick as that, I do training every single day. If I have girls or boys in a session, we have a size 6 ball, a 28.5. For the men, we have a size 7, a 29.5. It's just different. And then genetically too, men grow and are a lot taller. It's very, very rare that you're ever going to see a 7-foot female. It's not the same, where now you've got a guy like Victor Wembanyama or anyone like that. And not only are they 7+ feet, but they're guards too. And so, on the women's side, you have girls and women that, if they're 5'10", 5'11" in high school, like they're probably going to be a post. That's just the way it is. And then that's going to be a guard on the men's side. So little separations like that, but then also the way that we coach the game too. We always talk about it on the men's side that you have someone that's in the dunker spot. I'm a Denver Nuggets fan. The Denver Nuggets are incredible at utilizing Aaron Gordon in the dunker spot, where Jokic can throw him lobs and everything like that. On the women's side, we play a little bit lower to the ground. And so it'd be kind of silly as far as spacing goes to have someone in that spot at all times, because you're probably going to clutter space a little bit more because it's not an above the rim game as much. So little differences like that, I think, are big for some people. part of the reason that I coach, women's basketball is because it makes more sense to me. When I played, I mean, I'm probably 5'10", 5'11", and I was a shooter. And so I wasn't someone that was like high flying or anything like that. And growing up in Fort Collins at Colorado State, we had Becky Hammond. She was like the big time player to come out of Colorado State. And early on, I realized like, women's basketball is incredible. I never like looked at it as lesser than. I just knew that it was a different game. And so kind of knowing that, and then also the way that I played was a lot more similar to that. You got to have a high IQ. You got to be savvy. You got to be able to shoot the ball. You've got to have all this stuff. A lot of things that people see Caitlin Clark do is shoot the deep threes. It's like, nope, she does all the fundamental things too. She hits people in stride. She has such a great IQ for the game. And you see that on the women's side. It's just continuing to grow. So definitely some similarities and some differences. They're not the same game though. That doesn't mean that one is better or less than it. But if you're someone that's watched men's basketball your entire life, and then you tune into a women's basketball game, don't expect that it's going to be the exact same type of game. There's probably not as much isolation too, I would say, on the women's side, where now men's basketball, whether it's college, NBA, you see, as soon as 10 seconds is off the shot clock, you're probably going to get into a high pick and roll or an isolation set. You got to play with one another, I think, at all levels, but specifically when I've coached, it's just hard to find someone that's going to average 35 a game and be in isolation every set. So those are a few things that I've seen, but just from my perspective, just as a male playing at a high level and then transferring over to the coaching side with it, it was easier for me because I like the way that they play. But for other people, I think that are just consumers of the game, don't expect that it's going to be the exact same. But both games are beautiful because, in my opinion, basketball is the best sport of all time. So they're just a little bit different, but both beautiful games.
No, it's such a good point. There's a couple things you said there that I wanted to unbox. The main one being what you just said, and there's the whole entire point of what you were saying is that they're just not the same. And I think I need to be able to remember that too. They're not the same game. So if you can understand that going into it, and then you can actually appreciate it more. I think that's what happens. The media tries to compare the two. And some of it, I feel like, Coach, is like, some of it is kind of like from the women's side, especially the professional level. A lot of them are, they'll be in the media discussing equal pay and blah, 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 blah. And then like we get into this battle back and forth. And then it's like, well, they're at a $10 million deficit every year for the WNBA. So like, how are we going to pay them the same amount? Like there's all these. So then all of a sudden they put themselves up and then all these same arguments, they almost put themselves at the same level. Right. But in reality, it's a different game. It's a different business. It's a different situation. And if you can understand that, you can appreciate it more. And I think that's something I'm going to take away from this, like that what you just said right there. The other thing that you had mentioned is just like, the way the game is played, first off, quarters. Let's talk about that for a second. How the men haven't figured that out for quarters. I find that to be crazy that they haven't evolved there. That is true. It's the only level that's playing two halves right now, isn't it? The men's college game is playing two halves, and that's wild. Like, and no other league, in high school included, are you doing that? That's crazy. So it's like changes it all. That's where they have a step ahead. I think that's awesome. From a coach, I wanted to ask you though. What have you noticed from playing college basketball like yourself, playing in two halves as compared to like coaching at that level for quarters? What is the difference as a coach from a strategy standpoint?
Yeah, I think just more breakage period. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that on the men's side you're not going to have breaks, because the reason that they do that with halves too, from what I've been told or from what I've seen, is it goes back to media timeouts, because you're still going to get those timeouts. You just don't know necessarily when you are going to get them. And so for me, it's like, yeah, I like having media timeouts, all that type of stuff. It helps the athletes too. It helps the game when it comes down to that. But I know exactly when we're going to get a stoppage. So after 10 minutes in that quarter, I know for a fact that we're going to have a little bit more time to regroup, and we're going to get our breath back. And then we can kind of measure it quarter by quarter. Like, hey, are we winning this quarter? Are we losing it? What do we need to make up as far as a deficit goes? the game isn't necessarily slower, but as a coach, it doesn't just like rush like that, where you can be a little bit more methodical with it. ATO's so important. I mean, obviously that's timeout, but it's same thing. After a quarter, you look at, oh man, we gave up, 1 points in that quarter, and all we did was play man. Like, it gives you an opportunity to talk with your staff and be like, hey, maybe we should, throw on a press. Maybe we should zone a little bit more. Are there some kids that we maybe need to get in a little bit more? It makes you think a little bit more, and it gives you a little bit more time to breathe too, on top of not only your timeouts, but your media timeouts as well. So for me, it makes more sense to me, I guess. And then just growing up watching it too. And then watching the NBA, the game is longer, right? You've got 12-minute quarters. But when I watch an NBA game, it's great because I can kind of dissect it a little bit more. And then as a coach, I can be like, ooh, I really like that. The stoppage is there, and it doesn't feel like it just blows by, but it also doesn't feel like it's the longest game in the world. So not anything like crazy, but I think it just breaks it up more. It makes more sense in my head.
No, that totally makes sense to me. And it's like the little intricacies that you were mentioning. It's like, okay, yeah, I could see like why you would like that, that totally makes sense. Now, one thing that you were talking about is like there's not a lot of isolation ball going on in the women's game. And it's interesting you say that, Coach, because when I was covering our state basketball tournament, I live in Idaho. So when I was covering our state basketball tournament up here, a couple years back, well, it's actually been a decade. That's the first time. Well, it's happened multiple times, but this is the first time I noticed it. There's a girl named Destiny Slocum, and I want to shout her out. She was absolutely phenomenal. She's playing professional ball now overseas, I believe, but there was something different. And the reason there was something different is because the way she dribbled and the way she played like she was playing against a lot of dudes. Like, she had to the way she moved her body was just a different way of moving the body. The way she dribbled was just different. She had crossovers. She shot like Kobe, fadeaways and stuff, and she could do reverse layups. She just had a different way with her body, and she stood out because of that. And then fast forward to years later, I mean, about 2 or 3 years ago, Amari Whiting, she was playing in the state tournament here. She's now at Oklahoma State, but she was at BYU the last 2 years with her mom when she was a coach. Anyway, Amari Whiting, she was hooping, and then she stood out differently too. Just the way that she shot the ball it just seemed a little bit different than the other girls. And there was some things that just stood out that kind of, you could tell like she was on a different level. And I'm curious, I always tell the kids, like the third graders that we're coaching, at a young level, I'm like, hey, if you can just simply dribble the ball and not turn it over, you might actually have an advantage at this age. Like, just learn how to dribble the ball and be effective with that. Are there any things that you're seeing in the girls' game and the women's game that if you were to tell these girls that are aspiring basketball players coming up, that you've seen, that it's like, hey, if you can master these specific skill sets, you might actually have yourself an advantage in the women's game from what you've experienced?
Yeah, really good question. And it goes back to something that I kind of failed to mention when we were comparing, men's and women's basketball. I mean, if you look at it from a college perspective, just with Title IX, I think it was about 53 years ago now that kind of celebrating, some of that. So it hasn't been overly long too, just as far as equal representation within the college game. And then same thing with professionally. WNBA about 27 years ago, now that we're looking at, was founded. And then the NBA has about a 50-year advantage on that too. And that's not even counting the ABA as well too. So that's on a professional level as well. So you're looking at a 50-year leg up that you see on that side. So some of it is a lack of just, okay, I can play the sport. I'm going to be able to get a scholarship. I'm going to be able to play professionally. Those are all, external motivators that are going to help someone play a lot. If they don't think that they can get a scholarship or if it's going to mean anything, I mean, arguably the best women's basketball player of all time, and Cheryl Miller, never even played in a WNBA game because the league wasn't around then. I mean, she still got to coach and play on Team USA and all that stuff, but this is still things that are developing. And so having external motivators really, really helps. And so then to go back to your question of, okay, skill work, development, I mean, takes 10,000 hours to create something that you can become really, really, really good at and master a skill. And so for a lot of these girls, it's just getting in the gym and shooting the right way, I think too. And actually, because I work with boys and girls girls usually typically have better forms at a younger age because they listen more. they want to do things the right way. And their hand placement is always really good as far as that. I rarely see people shoot with their guiding hand or, even have a thumb flick. They really have good form. And part of that too is because it's a size 6 ball too. So then you can have better control over the ball as well, just with their hands. But the biggest thing for me as a coach is just the basics. It's like, do you have a good handle? Kind of like you were talking about passing and catching, like knowing your pivots, being under control, all that type of stuff, and just being in the gym a lot. Playing is like one of the best ways that you can become great. Like, I wasn't the most skilled athlete in the world, but I played a lot of pickup. And so I just knew the game. I knew angles. I knew how to shoot the ball. And so that helps me a lot. And I think the more that girls can just get in the gym and play once they have a good foundation, like I said, being able to shoot the ball properly, dribble, all that type of stuff, know the basic fundamentals. And then after that, just play a bunch. And it doesn't have to be you don't have to be on the circuit. You don't have to be, at these huge gauntlets, that cost a bunch of money. Just play basketball. And the more that you can learn the game and just be around it, you're going to master that skill. And it's going to be more fun too when you just play. If you're just in the gym getting shots up for 3 hours every single day, it's tough to have the right reaction time. So kind of just going back to your point, I just think shooting gives you a foundation, because if you can respect someone's shot, it's going to open up your drive. It's going to open up your passing game, all that type of stuff. But just play, know the game, watch it too. Now we've got the NBA for so long. Now it's done. OKC just won the finals, and then now we can watch the WNBA for the rest of the summer. And so there's so much high level basketball to watch. Just consume the game and know it. And then that'll help your game, too. So I really like that question though, just because I think so many people get overloaded with information. There's probably too much information out there right now. And it's like, okay, just stick to basics and play a lot of hoops and just have fun too when you're young. Oh my gosh, this is the time to have fun. You got the rest of your life. I mean, you mentioned a couple of girls that are fortunate enough to play at the Division I level. It's a job then. It's not fun. Like, I hate to say it. It's fun when you win a lot of games, but it's your life. Like, it's your life, especially with the NIL now. I mean, it's your life. Like, it's a job. So when you're young, just have fun with it and, get better every single day. So that's kind of my long answer, but definitely passionate about it, because you don't want to overcomplicate it and have 15 different trainers and, do all this stuff. Just play.
No, I love that. And you also mentioned, Coach, like you talked about like consuming. The kids that I coach seniors in high school for the club circuit, and it's always interesting because I'll ask a lot of them, like, do you watch the game of basketball, guys? Like, they're really talented. A lot of them are pretty skilled, but you'd be amazed. I think I'll just echo what you said. You'd be amazed at what you can do by just watching the game, dude. Like, I talked to Anthony Tucker on the show, and he played professionally for a number of years overseas, but he's from Minnesota, and he was talking about, like, if you have a favorite player and you want to be like that player, like, learn the moves that they make. Like, just watch how they move their body, watch how they dribble. Like, what's their situational way against certain defenses? What do they do? Watch people that you want to like mimic. It's crazy, right, Coach? Like, it's crazy what just watching the game, consuming it will do for your IQ. Yeah, I had a kid on my coach. His name was also Carson. Sorry, I had a kid on my team named Carson. Sorry. Who he'll be the first to admit, not athletic whatsoever, but I literally call him Baby Jokic because he's like 5'10", 5'11", but he has such a high IQ. You could trust him in the game in late game situations. Even on defense, like, he understood angles. He would get beat, but he understood how to cut somebody off like 5 feet down the lane. And sometimes he got beat up, but he also held his own. And then sometimes he would hold guys. He knew how to box out and get leverage underneath on somebody. He understood those things. He knew where to pass the ball. He didn't turn the ball over ever. Like, sometimes just watching the game and understanding it give you such it's so true. And then the other thing I wanted to say, I wrote it down. You mentioned how girls typically have better form. I brought that up. I do shooting training. I'm a shooting coach. And so I was doing some shooting workouts, and we have Ryan Ellsworth. She plays a local high school here in Idaho, and I'm fine saying her name because she's awesome and she's trained with me. And
that's cool.
Dude, she is such good form, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, every single shot is like the same, just plant. It's like so fundamental that it looks elementary, but it's so effective, right? It's not
Yep.
flashy, but it's
Yep.
effective. I think it's great that you said that because I thought of her.
Yeah, you rarely see a female basketball player that has a funky form, and I think that's why like maybe there's like this thing with like Angel Reese because she's left-handed, and you see like a little bit of a hitch when like she shoots it, and I'm like, you look at on the men's side, like I remember like Michael Kidd Gilchrist, his shot was all the way over
Oh
like
yeah.
this too. I mean, like you've got guys like Chuck Hayes, like leaning all the way forward, like guys that I just know where I'm like, that are in the league now and get paid good money. I mean, even like LaMelo Ball, a franchise player right now, he's had to work on his shot a bunch too. And so from the fundamental side, you rarely will see it where there's a girl that it's like, oh man, we really need to work. It's probably a small tweak where there's some guys in the NBA. I mean, I brought up LaMelo, like Lonzo had to change his shot completely because he was shooting on the side of his head, and now it looks really good. But he was in the NBA when he had to change his shot. So rarely you'll have to find a girl that really has to fix their shot. So that's kind of the fun advantage of it. And I think that girls love to be in the gym and shoot too. I think it's just the playing. Guys love to compete and play, and I think that's the ego and guys that just love to just go head to head and stuff. And the more that we can get girls out and just playing and competing, oh my gosh, it'll just change the game. So because they usually have the foundation, it's just the competitive part and getting the reps in live action. It doesn't even have to be 5-on-5, right? I mean, getting 3-on-3 going. I mean, 3-on-3 is blowing up a lot more because it's an Olympic sport, but 3-on-3 is probably one of the best ways where you can get better and get a lot of reps too, because you're not standing around in the corner. So plenty of ways to get better. But to your point, I mean, that's been the fun part of training, and then just working with athletes. They just I've rarely had to fix a shot.
That's so funny, man. I love it.
Yeah.
3-on-3, that the topic of 3-on-3 for girls, like specifically, but like guys too. I always tell people, coach, like that's my favorite type of basketball. That's actually where I floored because I was a shooter. I'm 6'2", but I was a shooter. I'm not the most athletic guy. I'm pretty strong, but like I could barely dunk off 2 feet, dude. And that's just like this. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't explosive.
Well, that's better than me, so good for you.
I can light it up though, but 3-on-3, dude, like that was the cool thing for me. I really gained confidence in 3-on-3, and I think for what you just said to the women, like if you want a competitive way to do it, and you can't get a 10 group of girls to go out there, you can find 6. Like, dude, it's great because you get more reps, you get more shots up. Like, you just gain confidence because the ball's probably going to touch your hands a little bit more than you would in 5-on-5, right? You just have less people, so the ball gets distributed better. Man, it's such a. I love 3-on-3. It's so good for the sport. Now, speaking of 3-on-3, I actually had this segue written down for Unrivaled. So they're testing out Unrivaled 3-on-3. It's a little different version of 3-on-3, like a miniature full court 3-on-3. I'll be honest with you. This is just my perspective. I actually found that, maybe it's because it's new, but I found that to be more entertaining, just like off, because it was like, whoa, I'm like, I could watch this. And like, I don't know. I thought it was cool, but I want to know from somebody who's in the sport, what your thoughts are on the Unrivaled League for 3-on-3 and what it's doing for women's sports. Do you think it's a long-term thing? Do you like it? Do you think it's bad? Whatever it is, like, I want to know your thoughts.
Well, I think it's great because I think a lot of it was born out of the conception of really 2 things. Number one, I think it's pay. It's okay. What can we do to minimize the pay of having to go overseas to get a contract, because that takes time away from your family. It usually interferes with the WNBA season. There's a lot of people that have these contracts and they got to go back and forth. They miss maybe the first part of the WNBA season. Just not feasible, but they get paid really well overseas. And that's what Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, they played in Russia for a really long time, and they got good paid well. I mean, you can't blame them for not doing it, because that's how they were able to make it a living and make it, a full-time job for a long time. And so going back to what I was saying is now you've got this way where you're minimizing on travel. You're not having to play overseas, and then you're actually getting paid more money too, because the contracts that they're getting are actually really nice. And then you're still staying in shape. You're getting the reps. You're getting TV time, all this type of stuff there. And then the second piece is just the safety of the players too. After everything that went down with Brittany Griner having to play overseas and then her being detained and all that type of stuff, that got a lot of news coverage. And to kind of segue, from that too, she's not the only person where it's affected her life negatively. It was just a big one. But like I said, there's been players that are Hall of Famers now in the WNBA that had to do that for a really long time. And maybe they got an injury. Maybe some of these girls aren't on great contracts and they're stuck on a bad contract overseas away from their family. There's a bunch of stories out there that I've heard either firsthand or from someone else, and it's just not feasible to do that for a really long career. Maybe for a couple of summers. And so Unrivaled comes in and they did a great job, I think, early on too, just marketing it, putting it on. I saw even just in this past year coaching, a lot of our girls would want to watch the games too. So I think there's representation there too, to what we talked about earlier, just watching the game. You're able to watch the game, and then the spacing is different within that too. And it's not just this half court thing where it's FIBA rules. And I think that's great. I think it's more entertaining when it's full court. And I think they did a good job. Like you said too, I just saw it today. I think the big three on the men's side with Ice Cube and everything, I think they're in season 8 as far as that goes. And I like watching that just because it's every once in a while, because I like watching some of the guys I grew up watching play and seeing if they still got it. But
right.
these women are still in game shape. They're at the top of their game. You've got MVPs that are playing, like a Breanna Stewart, it's high level basketball, and they're going full court. It's probably just a little bit easier on the eyes than like a big three where it's half court and they're just hacking the crap out of each other. There is still some of like the purity in the game that you saw. So to your point, very pleased with it. And I'm just excited to see where it's going to continue to go. And it's minimizing, some of that play and the travel that they have to do typically. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think it was something that got a lot of attention, but then the WNBA season started, like that. And things kind of mesh together a little bit, and the lines kind of get blurred. And I don't know how much people really analyzed that first year, but I thought it was a success from afar, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, man, I loved it. And from a business perspective, I always try to keep my business hat on too and look at it. I hope it's feasible. Like I hope it's sustainable, right?
Agree,
They've
yep.
got a good pool of money in there to pay the players a good salary. They've got, obviously there's less players than there would be on a normal team and a whole league of WNBA. So the pool of money can go a little bit further. It's just, can we get the media? Can we get the fan base on there? And that's like the big discussion in women's sports, right? The support. Like, okay, everybody wants to talk about, oh, well, we need to get better deals to them. They need to be paid more. They need to do this. But for some reason, it's like it's such a struggle to get people out to the games. And I think all of this conversation is so good for that, because the conversations I've had, Coach, is like, well, it's not entertaining. Well, what you said at the very beginning of the podcast, well, if you're not comparing them exactly to the NBA and you know what product you're going to go get, like you're looking at a different game, then it helps you want to go do that. But people just still don't go to the games. And I think we just need to see the game, the product on the court, a high-level product, so that we want to go see more. And I think Unrivaled will do that. People go overseas, and you kind of forget that they're over there. But you mentioned Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird. There was a podcast called The Spy Who Signed Me, and it was about their whole journey in Russia. And I just remember listening to that a couple of years back and just hearing their whole story. They said exactly what you were talking about. They're $3 million contracts over there. So that's like, they would go over there because that's where they wanted to play. That's where they made their living. Then they'd only come back for the WNBA for the summer for a couple of months, whatever. And that was like, it was kind of they only did it to like support the league, but it wasn't really where they wanted to be. They went from a mansion and having like first class everything in Russia to coming over here, flying, Southwest and staying at a Best Western. That's exactly what they were saying. And then obviously like the stuff went down in Russia that kind of like got met. There's some scary stuff that happened. The guy who owned the team got shot and killed in the middle of the
right.
There's some sketchy stuff going on over there, Yeah. So like it puts people in a really, you just mentioned it about Brittany Griner, but there's other people. It's just dangerous situations, just unfortunate situations. If we can keep them stateside, great. I felt like the NBA sort of did something similar with the G League restructure a few years back, like trying to pay them a little bit more than like a McDonald's salary. You get a little bit more of an option. Every team's got an affiliation. They're trying to keep players stateside, because once they go overseas, sometimes they're good enough to play over here, but they're going to go over there because the money's better and it's tax free, sort of. Right. But like they're going to do what they got to do, you know?
Yeah.
So
No,
Anyway,
I'm glad you brought that up with the G League, because the restructure, I think, has helped, and people glorify the G League now too. But when it was the D League, I mean, like you said, I mean, these are just brutal contracts where they're going paycheck to paycheck, and it's more for the love of the game more than anything. So just going back to what I said too, just with the growth and development of the league, right, being behind, we obviously aren't even close to having like a feed in or development team, but Unrivaled is kind of close to that. And the NBA has even had to go through some bumps and bruises just with their feed ins, too, where you look at, baseball, they've always had, feed in teams for a really long time. So the NBA is growing within that, and they've really found it. I think they're doing a great job now with the G League, and it's gotten a lot better as far as representation. And so that's going to be a benefit of the WNBA is being able to look at the NBA just as the brother league, kind of learn from their mistakes and be better from it. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because the NBA, they've done a good job of restructuring that and helping those players out, because I knew it was a struggle for a little bit at the time.
Oh yeah, man. If you guys ever even go back in time, like the D League, we had the Idaho Stampede here in Boise,
Yeah.
and that was,
Yep.
dude. I loved going to those games because I'm a fan of the game. Like there were some big names that would come through there. You see these guys play college hoops. Like I think Tyus Jones was one of them. Yeah, Tyus Jones. He was playing for a D League team that came and played against the Stampede one time. But like, I'm not kidding you, Carson. There was like, I could probably say there's probably 200 people in the stands at that game. Like nobody came to the
Yep.
games. And I'm like, dude, these are high level hoopers. But like,
Right.
but and it's because like the players didn't want to be there. Like the ones that were on the cusp, they'd rather just go make 200 grand, 150 grand overseas than playing
Yep.
for $18,000 in the D League. You know what I mean? At the time,
Yep.
now they've changed things up. So
Yep.
looking at women's basketball, obviously Caitlin Clark, big name. I mean, the last 3 years or so, there's been like another surge of talent coming through. We've always had our superstars, a couple of them here and there, Diana Taurasi's and more. Like you've had a couple of those big names, but it feels like it's starting to take another level up. You're getting different types of people excited for the game. Got Caitlin Clark, then the rivalry with Angel Reese, and all the tiff that goes on between the two of them. But there's a lot of other hoopers out there. I guess my question is, like, do you feel like it's an accurate assumption? Like, do you feel like Caitlin Clark is the reason for this, or do you feel like Angel Reese is the reason for this, or do you really feel like it's both of them? Because I'm on the Caitlin Clark train, but I don't think I just want to know what your thoughts are. I'm on the Caitlin Clark train. I think she's the reason for the resurgence here and just like this big spurt because she's fun to watch. I actually don't. I'm of the opinion that Angel Reese, she's tall. I don't think she has good footwork. I think she's an above average rebounder, and that's just my thoughts. But I'm just curious your thoughts and the state of the game and what you think is the reason for this big push right now.
Yeah, right. Well, so what you're saying right now, it's like opinion. People have an opinion.
Sure.
And that's a great start already. That just people are talking about it. Before it was like, how many WNBA players can you name? And some people would be like, wait, is Taurasi still in the league? Is she still playing?
Yeah.
Like it would be kind of one of those. Like, and now it's like people are invested, like to the point where it's like, hey, is this a rivalry? Like, why is the WNBA, getting, better attendance? Why are people paying more attention to it? Who is it about? Like, so now there's debate. People are paying attention to it. So it's like, yeah, it's tough when you're a growing league sometimes, like, but getting that negative attention, positive attention, it's attention towards the league. And so going back to what you said, like who's the reason, for it and the resurgence and people being excited about it, it goes back down to the comparison. I thought that the NBA really started to thrive when Steph Curry was playing, high level basketball. I mean, it goes back to like a huge breakout game that he had against the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden, where people were like, man, this Steph Curry guy is really, really good. And the way that he plays the game and his ability to shoot it from deep, relocate in the half court, his ability to pass, and then also not just be like super, super tall and physically gifted too. Obviously, his athleticism is a different type of athleticism. It's body control. It's all that type of stuff. Like he has elite athleticism, his hand-eye coordination. It's just unreal. People's excitement for a guy like Steph Curry reminds me so much of the people's excitement for someone like Caitlin Clark. you see young boys and young girls when Steph Curry was doing his thing, going to the gym, shooting deep threes, wearing a Steph Curry shirt. Now you're seeing it with young girls. People are in Caitlin Clark stuff. Like they're in the gym wanting to get shots up. They want to play like her. And I'm not saying that Steph Curry and Caitlin Clark are the exact same, but you see those similarities. You do. And it's been so much fun to watch that. I think their little rivalry between, Iowa and LSU in college added to it for sure. I think it just put fire in there. And then, Angel doing what she did, in college too, in the teams that they had. She was on some pretty stacked teams. I don't think that she had to carry. People forget, like, Iowa wasn't like doing incredible before Caitlin Clark got there. They also weren't the worst team in the nation, but like they weren't what they are today, where people are like, man, Iowa Hawkeyes, like, just selling out, the Carver Arena. Like, it wasn't like that all the time. And so she really changed, obviously Iowa basketball, but women's basketball. And I think Angel added to it. There was controversy, with it too. And then now in the WNBA, now you're seeing it again, right? Hard take foul at the beginning of the year. Me even saying that's a take foul is controversial with how much that kind of blew up. But I think that they're good for each other. I don't think that it's, necessarily fair to say, oh man, it's one or another. But as far as the partial piece to it, I mean, you have to say that it's Caitlin Clark. I just think it would be silly to say that it's not her. But I think they're both adding to it, and their ability to just compete, right, and get out there and be young too. I mean, there's a lot of rookies out there, second year kids, that they can't even land, a roster spot. So the fact that these are two starters in the WNBA that were incredible at the college level, and they're impacting the game, really adds a lot. But Angel's, growth and development, I'm in the same boat as you. She has a great motor. Like, she plays the game really, really hard. But the skill, if she can get that up, I mean, there's only going to be more fans of her. But right now, I mean, Caitlin, she's the reason that a lot of people tune into games. And obviously you could break it down statistically, but just from the eye factor, especially as a coach and former player, it's like, I want to watch her play. She's exciting to watch, So it's a great topic, and a lot of people like to.
It's controversial. I always try to steer clear of like giving too much of my thoughts on it, just because I want to be respectful too, because I'm not in it.
Sure.
And it takes a lot to even be on the highest stage of any sport. It's just I have my opinions on it like that. And what you said is very well stated. It's very well articulated too, and it's well thought out. So I appreciate that. I like that you said that they're good for each other. There's the competitive factor. I think of it almost like Michael Beasley, Lance Stevenson type of one-on-one.
Sure.
You had a little, they had to sell that, and then you got. But everybody had, like, that is good. That is good to have that competition, because now people are tuning in just to, like, for one reason or another. It's like politics, almost like you either hate them or you love them, and then you got to say something. And then another thing you said is, like, people know people's names now. Dude, just last week, Sophie Cunningham's trending all over social media, and all of a sudden she just cashing on like millions of new followers just because of being a good teammate. You know what I mean? So,
right. It's spot on, man. It's crazy. It's crazy.
That's cool, man. Well, Carson, as we close near the end of the interview, I just had two more questions or so for you, and I wanted to kind of just pick your brain as you're going to the high school level now.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you want to implement at the high school women's game compared to, with all the college experience and what you've been around, what you've seen in that world? What do you plan to implement into the high school game?
Yeah, you can't stay away from the fundamentals. It's just the way that it is. I was fortunate enough, just through coaching college, there when it gets down to the NCAA tournament, they have the regionals, and I was actually able to work at one of the regional tournaments. And so it was cool because I got to watch all the people that practiced in the first round at the Division III level. And so I was like, man, I want to see how these teams practice. Obviously, I had other responsibilities and whatnot, because I was the site rep for those. And it was so cool to see. It was like the best teams that I saw there they worked on the basics, even though it was, the NCAA tournament. I just remember one of the teams that was there. I can say this now because there's been enough time is passed, but University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, their team, they've had a lot of success, especially on the women's side. But the men, they won the national championship, D3 national championship, about probably 6 years ago now too. Like, they get some players that probably should be playing Division II or even Division I. And I just remember in their practice, like, they're playing off 2 feet, like they're getting paint touches, like there is like a heavy emphasis. And Brad Fisher, who's the coach, or easily could be coaching like Division I hoops. Like, he just knows the game so well. And I just remember watching them, and I was like, man, they're just doing the basics. Like, they're working on, taking care of the ball, playing off two, knowing their pivots, all that type of stuff. And it's like, you're about to go and play in a really intense game, but it's like, if you can't do the basic fundamental stuff without turning the ball over, not getting sped up, all that type of stuff, then how are you going to do the big things, So I think it stays the same. It's just the skill level is different. You can recruit a kid, just where I was at last year. I can recruit a kid and give him a full ride scholarship. And, that says a lot about someone. So you got to be more self-motivated in high school. But with that said, it's just like working with kids a little bit more, and then just establishing your why a lot more as a coach. And so you can kind of get away with that, I think, in college, because it's like, well, I'm coaching college basketball. Or, oh, well, I'm playing college basketball. I'm here for a reason. Where in high school, it's like, you really got to communicate that. And then as a player, you got to show it too. And so I think just focusing on a lot of the basic stuff, and not skipping steps. I'm really, really big on that. I think a lot of people skip steps in life in general, but also when they play hoops. And it's like, well, why is the reason that you're missing shots? And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm off today. That's what a lot of people say. It's like, no, your footwork stunk and you weren't balanced when you took those shots. And it goes back to your routine when you showed up. You showed up 5 minutes before practice, and you didn't get your mind right too. I'm big on mind body stuff too. And so I think it's just teaching the game, and then just emphasizing why are the way that we do things a lot more, just so the kids that can get behind it, because there's an underdevelopment. I know you said you've been in Idaho. I've been in the Midwest, coaching college basketball, and the Midwest has really high level basketball in high school. And, in Colorado, I was born and raised here. It's not the same. There's just not as much excitement for it. It's growing. There's a lot of people that I think want to be great, but they don't know what it takes to be great. And so that'd be the other part that I communicate, is like, you think that you're working hard, but you're not even close. You're not even close.
Yeah.
There's so many girls that are out there that are working way harder than you, and they don't even think that it's enough. So that'd probably be the other component, is just the mental piece. Because I feel like I was able to get that down during my playing career, and then coaching too. You can always go to another level. So that's a great question, but a lot of it stays the same. I think it's just communicating it a little bit harder.
Yeah, totally makes sense, man. Well, my last question for you is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, what's your ultimate goal? You mentioned how your dad, ultimately ended up stopping coaching, and you had said, basketball's not everything. There was some time he wanted to be with his family and so forth. How long do you want to coach? Like, what's your plans, coach, on your tenure? Would you like to coach professionally? Would you like to stay at the high school level? Would you like to go back to college? Like, what do you ultimately want to do in the coaching sphere? And do you have a goal of like how long, or are you just kind of playing it by ear?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's part of why you're a good interviewer too, because you've kind of created this to be full circle, to just bring him back to what I said about my dad. And honestly, I mean, I love to coach and help athletes, maximize their potential, and that's part of my why. It's just like, I feel like as a coach, I don't know if you feel this way too, but a lot of the athletes that have helped me in the past are the ones that, when they show up and they're working as hard as they possibly can, they're getting the most out of me as a coach. They're asking questions, they're pulling me after practice, helping me, helping get extra shots up, whatever it might be. I become a better coach from that. And so when I try and help an athlete maximize their full potential, they're actually helping me as a coach too. And so I love basketball. It's kind of just consumes my life. I'm like, man, I gotta find something else to do outside of this, but I love it so much that it can consume a majority of my life. I think it's important, but it's not everything. I've got family, I've got God in my life. I have, friends that, God bless them, they try and stick by my side through all this craziness. I've lived in 3 states in 4 years, and communicate with them as much as I possibly can. But I think it's just the impact piece. If I'm making an impact on a young athlete, and helping them, try and achieve their dreams and their goals, I'm happy, with that. And so, as far as timeline goes, I don't have it. The goal would be obviously to coach at a high level and win a lot of games. Like, I think people shy away from that. They're like, well, that can't be your reason for coaching. Well, I don't want to coach for 20 years and lose like all these games, like, I love winning. I'm addicted to it. I love winning so much. And so as long as I'm helping athletes, they're reaching their full potential, and I'm winning basketball games, I'm happy. Like that's really all it comes down to. So I look at, on the women's side, a guy like Gino Ariema, like a career like that would be incredible. And so the sky is the limit. It's just, how much time and effort and how addicted you are to it. It'd be cool to get to a place like that where you can just, win, more championships than your hands can fit. That'd be pretty sweet. But at the end of the day, I'm happy whatever level it's at, as long as I'm making an impact. And it sounds cliche or whatever, but it's just the truth. So there's a lot of people in this industry and this business that do it for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. And I want to try and at least be one of the good ones, or one of the good guys, as I like to say. So great question. And I appreciate you kind of bringing it full circle, but that might be 10 years. It might be 60. We'll see.
Yeah, dude. No, I love it though. And it's the honesty, and that's what you're trying to do. And I appreciate that and respect the answer. Yeah, dude. Nobody likes losing. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some people get so used to losing that they forget how to win.
Yep.
Yeah, I see it a lot, actually. So I love that you're addicted to winning. I think that's awesome, man. That's a good goal to have. You should have no shame in saying, hey, I want to win games. Like,
right.
So anyway, Coach, I appreciate your time, brother. Thank you for taking the time and coordinating this with me for the listeners out there, so they could learn. And I learned as well from listening to you and chatting it up with you. But I appreciate your time, man. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off today?
No, man, I just appreciate it. And if you're interested too, if you've listened to this podcast and you like what you heard, Shane does an incredible job just with his other guests too. So I'm big on that. Just like I talked about with film, being a teacher of the game and also learning it from other people too, like Mind the Game podcast that LeBron's doing. I encourage a lot of my athletes to listen in, to that. But it's the same thing like with this, like learning from people that did it. And it doesn't have to be LeBron James and a 2-time MVP and Steve Nash. Like, that's really high level and it's fun. Like, listen to that. That's awesome. But Gametime Guru does an incredible job too, just as far as interviewing people that played at all different types of levels. So if you like this episode, I just encourage you to watch more, because you got to be a vessel and just learn from different people and different experiences, because coaches and players, there's no one experience that's alike. Everyone has a different journey. So the more you can learn, I think it'll give you a broader perspective. But just appreciate you having me on, man. I had a blast.
Heck yeah, man. I don't even have to sign off with anything. That was thank you for the kind words. And again, for everybody listening out there, thank you guys for tuning in. And like Coach Carson Huelle said today, if you'd like to hit the subscribe button, we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. You can listen to the other ones that have been done in the past. So you guys take care. We'll talk to you next week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.